Hello everybody, as some of you may be aware, in October I'll be participating in Extra Life. Extra Life is a fundraiser for children's hospitals in which I and a couple of friends of mine will be recording and playing video games for 24 hours straight. As I had promised a lot of you, I will be trying to both record the entire 24 hours and have it available for streaming. So in order to do that, I have to test out all of the recording hardware. So the next couple of videos I'll be showing you guys are going to be demos testing out all of my hardware in different conditions. So for this first demo, we're going to be playing Split Second, and this is pre-recorded with added commentary afterwards. So Split Second was released in 2010. It's a racing game which was modeled as a reality TV show in which racers participate in an explosive competition. So for the demo, there are 4 different cars to choose from. At the start, I usually always forget about the 2 on the far left and try to choose between the Cobretti Slipstream and the Ryback Coyote. It's around this point that I noticed there are the other 2 cars, the Ryback Thunder and the Hanzo Bayonet. Now, each of these cars has 4 stats. These stats are speed, drift, strength, and acceleration. Now, speed obviously means the top speed at which a vehicle will go. Drift is a bit of a misnomer. If you notice, the one car that has the highest drift rating also says that it's best at drifting. However, high drift usually actually means high handling in that it turns better without drifting. A car with a low drift will pretty much skid along the road. You won't have as much control over it in the turns. Strength. As I had said earlier, this game has a lot of explosions and other types of things. Strength is the resistance of your vehicle to getting knocked around, either by other cars or by explosions. And then acceleration is how quickly you can reach top speed. For the demo, we'll be racing on the expressway. It's a 2-lap race, which shows off almost all the different features that this game has to offer. So if you'll notice, this car, the Bayonet, is the vehicle I start with. It has a very low drift score. So pretty much any turn I take will cause for it to drift, and the drifting is kind of out of control. As you just saw, I skidded into a wall. Underneath the vehicle, there's a bar that's rising slowly. This is the power meter. The power meter is used to execute power plays, such as this one right here. With power plays, you generally create some sort of explosion that'll give you the potential chance to knock racers out of the race temporarily, sending them to lower positions. There are 2 different levels of power play. There's the level 1 power play, which was just shown right there, and then there's also what's known as level 2 power play. Level 1 power plays only require 1/3 of that meter down there to activate, and they're generally simple explosions or simple little things to cause people to explode. Level 2 power plays are typically more complex and involved, such as this one right here, where we're seeing a helicopter carrying a dump truck underneath it, and then that dump truck is used to pretty much trash an entire highway. Though the level 2 power plays are really useful for taking out large amounts of opponents at once, but it comes with a huge drawback. It uses up your entire power meter, which means that if you have other power plays that you need to execute, you need to either use level 1 power plays or do things to quickly build back up your meter. There are a couple of different ways to build this power meter. One of them is drafting, which is when you're driving right behind another race car. Drafting has the benefit of helping you speed up as well as earning you power. Another one is drifting, which happens when you purposely slide into a turn, and that'll help you both corner a little better and build power meter. Another one, which we won't see that often in this race course at least, is jump. So if you hit a ramp or hit a bump and you get some hang time off of it, you will build up meter very quickly. Finally, the other way for you to build up meters through what's called a close call. In this game, the enemies can also pull power plays off on you. By dodging the power play when they explode, you get a decent amount of meter. Now right here I activate a power play, take out an opponent, but then my car's drifty nature causes for me to overturn and crash into the side of the wall. Now, as you can see, crashing doesn't have any long-term effects apart from taking you out of the race temporarily, which will cause a drop in position. When it gets to later on, it's usually easy for you to take advantage of this and not hopefully get knocked all the way back to 8th place. But if the pack is really close together, getting taken out for any period of time can really screw you over. And right there, that low drift score again just has me sliding all over the place out of control. In this type of game, where you have to be able to quickly dodge explosions and other cars, having a low drift score makes it much harder for you to actually move, making it much more likely that you'll crash and burn. So right there, that was an example of the low strength of this car. I triggered my own power play, and the force of the explosion, even though I was a decent way behind it, was still enough to knock my car around to the point where I crashed into the wall along with the opponent I had taken out. Look, in this game, having a really high speed is not that important. The big things that you really need is handling and strength in order to keep yourself in the race as long as possible. Acceleration and speed, top speed are nice, but they're not nearly as important as those other two stats I mentioned. So we come to the end of our first race. I'm not doing so hot to start. I got 6th place out of a possible 8, which against the AI is kind of terrible. There will be 4 races total, just to give you this as a heads up for you guys. The first 3 are going to be me showing off a couple of the cars, showing off all of the things that you can really do in this game. And then the last race I take seriously and actually attempt to beat the AI. So I completely skip over the Thunder. I don't like using SUVs because although they have a very high strength score and a decent speed score, they are terrible at acceleration and terrible at drifting, so if you do happen to crash with them, you're going to have a much harder time catching up compared to the other cars. So in the end, I decide on the Slipstream to start because it has a really fast acceleration and decent drift. If you notice, the strength score was very low, so I will be getting knocked around a lot by other cars during this race. Now the demo's good at teaching you some of the really important things to do early on, such as drafting at the start of the race. In most racing games, what you want to try to do is get to the front of the pack as quickly as possible. In split second, that would actually be counterintuitive because drafting, like I said, is an easy way to build a lot of meter fairly quickly. So just by drafting behind the opponents and staying low in the pack, I've already gotten a full power meter after only about 10 seconds of racing. Now, I attempt to try and use a couple of power plays here to take out the opponents, but due to bad usage of the power plays, I pretty much whiff both of them. Power plays are fairly situational. You don't want to use them until you're certain you can hit an enemy with them, even though the icon for using them could show up really early in the race. Now, the opponents can use power plays just as well as you can, and they will use them on each other as well as on you. So, unlike most racing games where the AI seems to be solely out to get you, in this game the AI is just out to win by whatever means necessary. There's not a significant amount of rubber band AI except because the power plays on their own are fairly good at equalizing the races. So right there, I'm surprised I don't crash because I hit the wall full on, and normally that would have taken me out. The game was feeling a little lenient, I guess. So now I have a full power meter, and in addition to level 2 power plays, another thing you can do with a full power meter is do a route change. Now route changes will change the actual layout of the track. Usually, almost all route changes in this game will shorten the track somewhat so that the lap times will be shorter. They are also very powerful. If you notice there, I had 6 wrecks with 7 opponents. That means I took out almost every single opponent but the first place driver. The only reason the first place driver survived is because he was so far ahead of the pack that he was actually still on the original track when I used the power play. So as a result, he dodged it, but since, like I said, the track changes cause a shortening of the track, it allowed for me to easily catch up to him and overtake him. Now, even though this car has a slightly better drift score than the Bayonet that I was using earlier, it still is sliding around a lot, as you can see here. I don't have as much control with this car as I would like. And due to that lack of control, they're still able to catch up with me fairly easily. Now, in these kinds of narrow stretches, using a couple of level 1 power plays in quick succession can knock the opponents all over the place, which can allow you to take out multiple opponents in one go. Right there, I got a bit cocky. I turned back to look and see if anyone was actually still close up to me, and I wind up going full on into a truck that's one of the opponents had blown up in front of me. That wound up costing me the race because I had second place before crashing, and since I had taken out all those racers at once, they were still together as a pack when I crashed, and they were able to pull back in front of me pretty quickly. Moral of the story is, whenever you're racing in a game like this where explosions can happen around you at any time, it's really not the wisest idea to be looking behind you. Now, I'm doing a little better, got up to 4th place. The slight improvement in the drift score probably helped that somewhat, but still not even close to a podium position, and I would like to at least hit podium in this recording. So I switch over to the Ryback Coyote. It's my favorite vehicle. It has the highest drift score you can possibly have, so it sticks the corners really well. It will not drift unless you want for it to drift, which is nice because, like I said in this game, having complete control over the car is the best way to handle any sorts of power plays that may be coming your way. This race starts out pretty much the same way as all the other ones. I build up draft as quickly use drafting to build up gear as quickly as possible. Now, I'll be a bit more quiet during this race because I want to make sure that you guys get a bit of time to hear the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this game really does feel like it's in an action film, so it lends itself really well to the nature of this game. Rather than activate the power play right as soon as it was available, that time I waited until some of the cars were actually inside that little overpass of the highway before I activated it. That way I was actually able to get 1 or 2 of them with the power play. A level 2 power play is pretty much wasted unless you can take out at least 2 or more racers. If you only have a one-on-one situation, it's usually better to just use level 1 power play. Got level 2 built up, but I'm not going to trigger the route change this time. One of the other things about Split Second is that they usually put in a lot of power plays right after the finish line, so you will never be able to see them in action on the first lap. You have to build up that full meter in the first lap in order to see them in subsequent laps. So here I save up for this power play, and in this one we blow up about half a highway. This game is pretty heavy-handed with the explosions. It's got about as many explosions per race as you see in a typical scene in a Michael Bay movie. I'm personally not complaining because it makes the game that much more fun to play. You saw for a split second there that the level 2 power play showed up. Now, that one's really hard to trigger. Some of these level 2 power plays are able to be activated multiple times. The one that I managed to activate was dropping the dump truck back onto the road and taking out an opponent. The other one, if I had managed to activate it quickly enough, would have been me dropping the rest of that highway down on any racers in there. But for that one, it required split-second time. No pun intended. Here, once again, I screw myself out of a victory because I activate a power play and then forget to dodge it. So I wind up tanking right into the middle of a truck that I had blown up personally. So what could have been a podium finish instead winds up being just shy of one. Now I think I've shown you all of the big power plays that you can pull off in the game at this point, so we'll take one more race, actually play against the AI seriously, and see what happens. I feel like the game knew that I wanted to try and get a first place finish for this one because it chose my absolute favorite track out of all of the Split Second soundtrack. I'm kind of surprised that they still crashed after that one because they had plenty of time to have recovered from that one power play, but they still wound up crashing. Now there I hung back a bit because that one where the entire dock pretty much explodes, since it's on a turn, it has a good chance of knocking you into the wall and crashing you like what happened to the 3 racers right in front of me. I'm not going to waste a level 2 power play with one opponent in front of me because a level 1 power play will get the job done just as easily. Part of the importance of this game is strategic power play usage. You don't want to waste a full meter to take out one opponent when you can accomplish the same thing with just one segment. And save yourself additional meter in case you need to pull off another power play for the inevitable person coming up right behind you. The last nice thing about level 2 route changes and some level 2 power plays is you notice there the music cut out right as the power play was about to execute. You can use those audio cues to let you know that a power play is about to happen so you can attempt to get out of the way if you can. Although usually in most cases with level 2 power plays, if you are close enough to feel the power play, you're not going to be able to get out of the way of it. So at this point, I'm in second place. I have one car in front of me he's driving an SUV from the look of it, and although they have a slightly higher top score compared to the Coyote, I have better handling and acceleration, so I figure that on the turns I'll be able to catch up with them a little bit. And I still have a power play. Even though his vehicle has high strength, all I have to do is knock him around a little bit to slow him down, and I'll be able to get past him. But fortunately, I just wrecked the guy. And it winds up giving me a fairly respectable lead of 4 seconds. Now let's see if I can actually manage to maintain that lead this time for the entire race. I have no meter, so if someone does manage to hit me and take me out of the race, there's not going to be much I can do to take them back out in return. Fortunately, it looks like I don't manage to make any mistakes this pass, so I managed to keep my lead for the entire race, and I even, knowing that there's no power plays left in front of me, I even decided to look back and see just how far ahead I really am. And first place finish. So one thing I didn't mention, because it wasn't shown on this track, just like with the level 2 power play, you have the route change and the power play itself. With level 1, you also have a route change type of thing as well as a power play. For the route change at level 1, all you have is a shortcut that can be opened up temporarily. And other characters can pass behind it. So thank you guys for watching, and leave some comments, give me some suggestions to help me improve, and talk to you later.